Welcome, everybody, to the Men's Yoga Podcast. Today on the podcast, we have Barry Greyvenstein. Oh, I'm messing it up. You have to pronounce it for me. Let's go ahead. You can pronounce it for me, the last
No
name.
problem. Greyvenstein.
Greyvenstein.
It's just one of those things you've got to, but there's no issue if you don't get it right. There's no hard feelings.
Yeah, I just wanted to try as best I could, but I kind of messed it up. Anyways, so you've been teaching yoga for about 14 years now, and you're
That's
in a
correct.
little and you're in a little town near Mossel Bay, near the very south tip of South Africa. That's correct?
That's right. We're right on the south coast. We're almost on the very southernmost point of the continent of Africa, not far away from that, a couple of kilometers or miles north of the southernmost tip of Africa. It's a small little village tucked away. Not many people, even in South Africa, have heard of it.
And you're saying like there's not even street lights. There's nothing.
Oh, we've got street lights and things like that. And we've got a few restaurants and things, but no crowds. So which is lovely because you get totally spoiled with the serenity of the place. And we've got a beautiful island, just part of the river. It's quite a big river, and it forms an island. And on that island, there are about 40 or 50 houses on the island, and we do our yoga under a huge ficus tree on the banks of the river. And obviously that limits us to weather. So if the weather is not, doesn't play with us, and then we've got inclement weather, then we have to unfortunately cancel our yoga. But we are still looking for a venue that we can use as an alternative venue on bad weather days. But it's amazing. It's just incredible that I think in a year, if we cancel about 10 classes, it's a lot. And we have classes 3 times a week, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I think the best part for me about our yoga classes is that it's free of charge. We don't charge for our classes. It's a free service to the community.
Wow. So have you lived you've lived there your whole life?
No, I retired here 18 years ago. I was 56 at the time, and I took an early retirement with my partner, and we moved to Great Black River. And it's been the happiest move in my life. I've never been happier in a village or in a home in my life than I am here. Very, very quiet, and it's like being on a farm, but it's really beautiful.
Beautiful. So what made you choose that area?
Well, mainly because it's close to Mossel Bay, and my sister and I are very, very close. And she lives in Mossel Bay. She's a medical doctor, and it just was being too far away from her. So I just said, we need to be closer to my sister because we're very, very close, and we just can't stand being apart from each other. When I say apart, I mean even like, if it's 50 kilometers or more, then it's just too far. And this is a nice distance. We're not on each other's doorsteps. We're about 20 kilometers. I'm not sure what that is in miles, but about 20 kilometers apart from each other. But it's close enough to just go and pop in for tea or for lunch or a quick visit, which is rather nice. And that's the reason we actually moved here. And as I said, it's really been a very, very successful move and a very happy move. And it was at that time that I then met up with the yoga group here. I didn't even know there was a yoga group, and I'd never really done yoga before. I'd thought about it, and I'd been to see a couple of studios. Previously to moving here, we lived in Cape Town. And I think most people in the world seem to know Cape Town and Table Mountain. And we had a beautiful home in Cape Town. I went to see a couple of yoga studios in Cape Town to inquire about yoga, and there was just something that didn't resonate with me. Beautiful studios with wooden floors and soft music playing and all beautifully equipped, but it just didn't feel right for me. And when we moved here, our neighbor said to me, "Oh, by the way, do you know there's a yoga group on the island?" I said, "No, I didn't know about it." She said, "Well, come with me next Monday and I'll introduce you to the yoga teacher." And I did, and I haven't stopped going. It's the first time I've done yoga, and I just can't live without it. It's just been the most amazing experience in my life.
Amazing. So it was almost like the setting that was it the setting that changed everything, or your perception of it?
It just resonated with me. The crystal clear, I call it champagne air. We have this beautiful coastline, unspoiled scenery, natural surroundings, and air that you can actually taste. It's so pure and unspoiled, unpolluted air, and the sea's right there. We can hear the waves breaking while we're doing our yoga class. And the setting is just so perfect for what I what was right for me. And I remember quite clearly that my first yoga class I'd went in, and bearing in mind I'd never done yoga in my life before, so I sat in the back row on the lawns. We do it on the open on a lawn under the trees, and at the end of the class when we do our savasana restorative period, I had a total out-of-body experience. I floated up above the ground and floated up above, and I could see the yoga crowd, and there were about 15 or 20 of them, I remember, on their mats on the lawn, and I just looked down at them from this height, like I was, if I was, there weren't even things like the zooming lenses, or what do you call them? What do you call those things?
Oh, like the bird's eye view kind of cameras kind of hanging.
It was a bird's eye view camera, and I was up there, and it was the most blissful, peaceful, serene feeling I've ever felt in my life. And as the period, the savasana ended, I just felt my spirit just descending back into my body, and it just was something so real to me, and so something that I've been missing all my life, and it was really the most wonderful experience, and I loved it. And we do classes on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon, and as I said, it's a huge group of people, and people come and attend the classes as and when they want to. And what's interesting is that over the years, there's been a lot of men joining the yoga group as well. Guys that you wouldn't have thought, were interested in yoga, have just found themselves attracted to yoga and the level of yoga that we practice on the beach or on the riverbanks. And bearing in mind, being on a lawn, it's difficult to do all the yoga poses and asanas that one would normally probably do on a fixed or level surface. And also the age group, at that time, there were some of the members were, I would say, 20, 23 years old, and the oldest member was 93.
Wow.
So the type of yoga which we would enjoy had to be sort of tailored to the age of the group, or the age variation of the group, let's put it that way. Right. So we do a sort of fairly middle of the road, I think, yoga. We don't, we don't do headstands for long periods because it's difficult on an uneven surface. Mm-hmm. And we have to tailor the classes to the age group and the ability of the people participating. And
so are people from other towns coming to this as well? Like,
not really. We've got a few visitors from Mossel Bay, maybe one or two occasionally, and George is our other closest village or town, quite a big city. Mm-hmm. And we have a few that come through from George, but mainly the locals in the Great Black River area. You can Google Great Black River, South Africa, and see where it is. It's a fascinating little village. It's got a very interesting history. But as I said, it grew over the years. And when I started and joined the group, I new to yoga, and the teacher that we had she was, I think, 68 or something at that time. She turns 80 this year. So she's just going to turn 80 this year. And she's been teaching yoga for, I think, 30, 40 years prior to that. And she's just the most amazingly inspired and sensitive person. And I did yoga and we only had my yoga on a Monday afternoons, and I attended classes for about 2 or 3 years. And then she used to write she still does write everything out. Her whole class gets written out in longhand. She has 2 foolscap pages, and she writes every detail down in the most incredible detail, every asana, every posture, every position in longhand, and she reads it out and she says, okay, now we're going to do this and then that. And then I saw that she wrote it down, and I said to her, Jill, would you mind if I borrowed your notes and if I repeated your class on a Thursday? Because I said, I'm feeling that 1 class a week is not enough for me. I was taking 1 step back and 1 step forward, 1 step forward, 1 step back. I wasn't progressing as much as I thought I should have. And she said, no, I don't mind that at all. And after every Monday class, she would give me the notes for the class, and I would then announce to the people present, if you want to come on a Thursday, we'll repeat this class, which they did. And it became very, very popular, having 2 classes a week. And then I still felt I still needed more. And then I said, well, I'm going to now split it and do a class on a Wednesday and a Friday, and still repeat her class as arranged. And after 3 or 4 years of doing this, I realized, I wasn't actually following her notes anymore, because in the meantime, I'd read up and done a lot of research into yoga online and Facebook and reading quite a lot about it. And I'd attended a couple of other yoga classes in surrounding villages, and in Neisner and in George and in Mossel Bay. I'd been to other yoga teachers' classes, and in Oudtshoorn, there was a BKS accredited yoga school in Oudtshoorn, which is about an hour's drive from where we are. And I'd been to class there as well. And I just realized more and more that I had a natural, I'm not being egotistical about this, but I had a natural flair and instinct for just feeling what needed to be done. So I've never written notes out. I sometimes go to a class fairly uncertain of what I'm going to do. And it's more a spiritual.
You have a deep connection with flow, and you're channeling this energy.
I get channeled. I just start the class and I sit down on my mat and I just close my eyes for 5 minutes, and then the class just flows out of me. It's just something which just happens. And
so do you do any other practices, like or is it just strictly yoga? Like, do you do yoga at your own place, or do you incorporate meditation, other things like that?
Will I incorporate meditation? But I don't know whether I've been to other classes and everybody has their own style of presentation. But what we do is we start off with about 10 to 15 minutes of just breathing exercises, and just getting the people to breathe more accurately, because Jill believes, and I also do too, that if you can breathe more fully and more accurately, it's 60% of the success of yoga is actually in the breathing process and the ability to breathe and then relax and center yourself. And so we start off with about 15 minutes of just breathing, especially just to people who are not aware of how to breathe correctly, using your diaphragm, your rib area, to really fill your lungs as properly as you possibly can. And that's really meant a lot to me to learn over the years to breathe properly, because it's a de-stressing mechanism, and it's a focusing mechanism to breathe properly. And also in the beginning, we used to do a 60-minute class, and I've now extended it to a 90-minute class. So we do an hour and a half, which feels the correct sort of time for a yoga class for me, because we do about 15 minutes of breathing, and at the end of the class we do about another 10 to 15 minutes of a relaxing savasana just to end the class off with. And it's a beautiful way of ending the class. So that's just the way it's evolved for me, and I do what I feel comes naturally. And I still am part of a lot of the Facebook groups online, and I do a lot of research, and I follow a guy in Maldives or something, where he is, Paul Teodo. I follow his yoga group as well on Facebook, and it inspires me. So I get a lot of inspiration by just watching and listening and talking to people.
Amazing. Yeah, I was just going to say, like, what has changed in your life? I mean, it seems you have a deep passion with this, and it sounds amazing.
It changed my life 100%, 180 degrees. My life turned around. And I've often said to people since, because what we've also now evolved in our group, we do a yoga retreat every year in about October, November. We do a yoga retreat where we go away with 15 or 20 people to a very nice farmer yoga retreat for a weekend. And we have discussions, and we have group discussions as to how yoga has impacted your life. And I quite honestly can say, and I said this at a recent retreat that we had just last month, that yoga is now the hook on which I hang my life.
Beautiful.
And that's probably the most accurate way I can place it, that it has become so meaningful to me and so real to me in my daily life that it's just part of who I am. And I've learned to understand my body better. I've learned to understand how I function physically, mentally, and spiritually. And it's that link, which obviously that's where the word yoga originates from, yuj, from the old Sanskrit name of union. And that's the union between your body, mind, and your spirit. That's what yoga is all about. And it's incredibly meaningful to me. And I've had people, and it's not from an egotistical point of view, I've had ladies and gentlemen coming to a class and breaking down in tears after the class, just sobbing, because of the impact that the class has had on them in a spiritual and uplifting way. And they're crying out of joy. And I've had people saying that they felt that they were the only person in the class, and that it was just them and me in the class, and they haven't realized that there are 15 or 20 people in the class. Because that is one of the, giving the classes for free is, and we never refuse anybody. So the problem is sometimes that your classes grow to be a little bit too big, and you find it very draining from a spiritual point of view, or an emotional point of view. So the classes between 15 and 20 are a nice class, but sometimes they've gone up to 30 people in the class, and
Wow.
it becomes a little bit challenging, but in a good way.
Right. And people are sharing this amazing experience together, and there's a lot of resonating energy happening between everybody with that, right?
I've had one lady who joined our group probably 10, 12 years ago, and she's an exceptionally tall lady, and I think she had some sort of a hang up about her height. She felt a little bit conspicuous being a tall person, and a very lovely lady. And she used to come up to me and say, Barry, please just ignore me. I'll be at the back of the class. Don't correct anything. I just want to be there. And if you would have known what she was like back then when I first met her and what she is today, she's undergone a personality change. She stands up tall, and she's got a smile on her face, and she has more confidence in her being. She's just a different person. And she said, this is what yoga has done to me. You know, it's just made me realize who I am, and I've evolved into a different person as a result of coming to yoga. And she's just amazing. The change in her personality that she's undergone from when I first met her to what she is today is just like day and night. It's been quite amazing.
Now, a question I usually ask people, but it almost seems like you answered it, is what has been your biggest learning experience?
My biggest learning experience, I think, has been the joy of sharing.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I must become emotional because by sharing my experiences with yoga and my interest in it, I have received so much back. And the fact that I'm in the wonderful position where I don't have to rely on the income from yoga to live off of, I'm fortunate enough to not have to do that I can afford to do it as a free service to the community. What I've received back is indescribable in just other ways, you know, just the joy of sharing and the joy of being with people who've seemed to have also gained so much from it. It's been a very emotional experience, and it still is.
It's really beautiful, Barry. I think this just goes to show, like, from someone, it seemed like you never even thought of doing yoga and doing it after your retirement, and how much it still has impacted and changed your life like this. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful what you're doing. It's beautiful what you're sharing with people.
And it's not just me, you know, I've had people, as I said, becoming very emotional after a yoga class, and I didn't realize what sort of impact yoga, not me, what I was having through yoga on other people's lives. And the feedback I get on an ongoing basis is just phenomenal, of people saying, you know, thank you so much for what you've done for me. And I said, no, it's not me, it's what yoga's done for us. And I firmly believe, and this is something that I would love to see happen in the future, that yoga should be included as a subject, or included in the syllabus in schools, because for conflict resolution, the country that we live in, South Africa, has a lot of conflicting energies in it, as people may know from the history and the news. But in life generally, with COVID, which is just ridiculous, and what it's brought, the conflicts and the stress levels that it's brought into everybody's lives on a daily basis. I lost my partner to COVID 5 months ago, and yoga has helped me so much in dealing with that process. And I just think that yoga should be taught in every school in the world, to children, to learn to grow up and to learn to become better people through yoga. And so many people have this misconception that yoga is some strange religion lurking in the background that's going to change people's minds, and some voodoo sort of thing. And this is what I can't believe. And my yoga teacher, my principal yoga teacher, is actually Jewish. She's a Jewish lady. Her religion is Jewish. And she said to me, you've got to understand that yoga has no real religious connotation. Yoga makes you a better person, irrespective of what your religion or your faith is. Yoga is just brings out the best in you and makes you a better you. And that's what's been the most remarkable thing for me, is that I've seen people becoming better versions of themselves, irrespective of who they are, their sexuality, their nationality, or their race or religion. It has no borders and boundaries. And I think that has been the most stunning revelation to me as to how yoga has changed not only my life and my perceptions of life. It's done this for so many people as well. And that, I think, has been the most rewarding aspect of yoga for me.
I can totally relate with that. Like when I grew up Catholic, and then throughout my life, I feel like I lost my faith, I lost my religion due to some circumstances. And it wasn't until I got into yoga where it was something I could connect with because it was spiritual, but it didn't have a religion tied to it. And that's what I loved. And that's what I loved about it, where it was like, oh, I'm free to invest my, I guess, beliefs into whatever I want and still have this amazing practice.
I think what yoga has also helped me understand, and I hope I'm not unique in this respect, is that I have such a strong spirit guide that looks after me and helps me, guides me, helps me through every problem in my life. And I've learned to communicate with my higher entity. I don't know what some people call it a guardian angel, others will call it something else maybe. But my spirit guide is so real to me and has become so real to me, I think, directly as a result of yoga. And I communicate with my spirit guide or guardian angel or whatever you want to call it on a daily basis and actually have conversations. And I feel people say to me, you sound a bit nutty. I said, yeah, maybe I do. But to me, it is been the most meaningful revelation that yoga has assisted me in gaining that sort of ability to open up channels and lines of communication. And I just can't encourage people more highly than I do to at least try it. And obviously one realizes that not everybody will resonate with it or it won't resonate with everybody. But I said, give it a go. And honestly, I don't think of all the people that I've been fortunate to have introduced to yoga, I don't think there's more than one or two that haven't continued on the path. And one lady, unfortunately, came to yoga and we did the sun salutation at the end of the class. And she came afterwards, she said, sorry, I won't be coming back to yoga. And I said, well, I'm terribly sorry if something offended you. What's the problem? And she said, no, my religion teaches me not to bow down to any other god. And I've only got to worship one God in my religion. I said, what a pity, because you've obviously misunderstood it. We're not worshiping the sun. We're acknowledging the life-giving force of the sun. It's just out of gratitude that we're acknowledging the sun by doing the sun salutation. And it's not a worshiping thing at all. And she still to this day has not returned back to yoga, which I found very sad, because obviously she misinterpreted the whole concept and of the essence of what yoga is all about. As you said, you can be a Catholic, you can be a Jew, you can be a Buddhist. It doesn't matter what you are, what your religious beliefs are or aren't. Yoga has actually, in my opinion, nothing to do with that side of life. And you can be free to do who you want to be and be yourself. It just brings you out and brings you and enables you to be a better version of your true self.
That's beautiful. It's beautifully said. What has been your favorite life experience?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What has been your favorite life experience?
Oh, that's a big question.
It is.
It's a very, very, very strong and very difficult one to answer, and it sounds almost contradictory, but I think one of the strongest life experience I've had was 5 months ago when my partner of 30 years died from COVID. And that was probably the biggest wake-up call in my life, because I realized, even though I had yoga, that I was taking life for granted in certain respects and just thinking, well, we're all going to be around forever. You know, you don't actually think about the fact that we all have a limited time on this earth, and how important it is to get to know your spiritual entity within you. And I do believe that the spiritual side of me and of everybody on earth will continue after our life and our journey on earth ends in this particular body, in this that we inhabit. And I just believe that the body that I have is inhabited by my spiritual entity, and that spiritual entity will go on. And I think the losing of my partner after such a long period of time just was a real wake-up call to me that, hey, life is here while you're alive on earth to be lived, and to gain the most from it and to give the most you can. Because I know it's a biblical quote, but it's in giving that you shall receive. And I'm not a religious person, but if that quote comes to mind so strongly from the Bible, and it's, to me, has become so true, that the most joy I've received in my life has been from giving to others and supporting other people who are not as fortunate as I am. And I do a lot of charity work. I do a lot of animal welfare work as well. I'm part of an animal welfare society here. They're fundraising and reaching out to animals in distress in our unemployed communities, because South Africa struggles with a very high unemployment rate, and there's a lot of poverty in our area. But by helping to uplift the community and where you live, as I said, it's just become such a meaningful thing to me. So I think probably it's all part and parcel of my life journey and my experiences. But a possible negative thing like the death of a partner has been a very meaningful revelation to me in my life.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and we send our condolences. It's been a really rough time now for a lot of people in the world, and we're really,
none of us are immune to it. I mean, it could get to any one of us at any point in time, and it's just one of those things that I still can't comprehend, how the world is being challenged and has been challenged by this plague, this epidemic. And it's just something which I can't comprehend. And I just feel that somewhere along the line, one day, I'm hoping that there will be a revelation as to why it's happened and the meaning of it, because it just doesn't make sense to me at the moment. But one has to continue living and giving of yourself and receiving. So that's my take on it.
Right. If you were to offer someone that's getting into yoga a book, or maybe something to check out online, what would be something that you would direct them towards to?
Well, I happen to become introduced to Hatha Yoga, which is the BKS Iyengar, and I read up as much as I can. But with the advent of the television, not television, the internet, and the access to information that the internet has brought so readily, there's just an avalanche of information that's so readily available through Google. So, I would just say what I say to people coming to yoga, because a lot of people, I think, expect something like a light bulb moment to happen the first time they do yoga and it's going to change their lives immediately. I said, no, you've first of all got to give yoga a chance. You've got to open yourself up spiritually to the possibility of change in your life, and give it a chance. And don't become judgmental. Just come to yoga and evolve with it for a period of maybe 2 or 3 months, and then feel if you this is where you belong. And that's how it happened with me and a lot of other people that have now joined our group. We've got about 60 to 80 people on our list. Thank goodness not all of them arrive at a class at once, but that's how big the group has become. And obviously through circumstances, and not everybody is available on every day, and they're away on holidays or business and things like this. So an average of about 15 to 20 people arrive for a class at any given time. But there's no restrictions. We just say to people, come when you feel like it, and don't have to come. You don't have to apologize. You just attend a class when and if you feel like it, and you're available to. And I just encourage people to, as I said, I think give yoga a chance. That is probably my strongest viewpoint, is don't judge it and expect to be something like a tablet you take and boing, tomorrow you're feeling different. I said that the benefit from it is gradual, and you've got to give it a chance to have an impact, and you've got to open yourself up spiritually, mentally, and physically to the possibility of yoga improving your life. It's not going to force itself in. You've got to invite yoga in. You've got to have the right mental attitude and invite yoga into your life and be open to receiving the blessing, which I think yoga is and should be to everybody. This is why I said I think it should be taught in schools to children to learn to become different and accept differences in other people. Not be it helps as an aggressive management system, in my opinion. If you're angry, you can go back to yoga. You can go back to your breathing, your alternative nostril breathings, and all the other breathing techniques that one teaches and learns in yoga, just to calm yourself, to relax, to de-stress. It's such incredible techniques that I have learned to apply to my daily life just through what I've learned in yoga. You don't have to only do it when you're in a class. I mean, I've been on an ocean cruise ship liner where I just would go and find a little hideaway place under the lifeboats and just do my own yoga there. And it's been so meaningful to me. And it's wonderful to do it in a group because you have that energy and that spiritual energy that builds up in a yoga group when you're in a group of 15 or 20 people. I had it, in fact, last week I was doing a yoga class on the banks of the river, and the lady was up on a hill on just close to where we were working and doing our class. And she actually took the trouble to drive down to the island, and she came and she said to me, she was standing up on the hill watching us through binoculars doing our yoga class on the lawns on the banks of the river. And she said, I could just sense the energy and the spiritual energy amongst you people. She said it was just unbelievable. She said I would just have to come down and just thank you for what I perceived and what I felt. And so now she's going to join the group.
Oh, it's amazing.
She said you could feel it from hundreds of meters away. She felt, just looking down on us, she said she just could feel the energy amongst this group. And that was quite a nice sense of feedback for me to receive, that at least something's working somewhere.
Right. And I like how you touched on where, like, you have to give it a try, because I noticed when I first, and you got to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it. Yeah. Because when I first started, I noticed my mind was going, this is silly, this is stupid. And my mind, like, your mind's challenging. And I notice sometimes even now, if I'll try like new things, my mind immediately goes to that, this is silly, this is stupid. And it's like, no, you got to give it a try and actually and feel it and give it that time to soak in.
And I always say to the people in my class, I don't call them students, they're just friends in yoga. I say to them, you know, the challenge for me is that you can repeat the same asana almost every yoga class, or we obviously vary them and challenge and try to make it as interesting and challenging and informative and beneficial as one can. But there's certain, I like the Baddha Konasana and the Savasana and the Parasvitra Trikonasanas and these type of things that one does, that you just feel you need to include almost in every class. And the cat cow, which is the most wonderful restorative and relaxing asana for your spine. And I just say to them, you know, don't become mechanical, because that's, I think the danger there lies in, I said, okay, now we're going to do this, or we're going to do that, or we will do flow yoga for a change today. And we will transition from one upward facing dog to downward facing dog to whatever the case may be. And I said, the challenge to me is trying to perceive it and approach it with a freshness every time you do it. Don't do it like, oh, I know what's coming, so it becomes a mechanical posture or repetition. And I said, you've got to approach yoga as if you're doing it for the first time, or it's a new posture that you've just been exposed to, and do it with the sincerity. I use the word sincerity a lot, and awareness. I think awareness is probably one of the strongest and most often used words in my class, is to just be aware of everything you're doing. Don't just become mechanical and just do it.
Be with the posture, because then you end up starting feeling like the little movements that's happening in between your muscles. You start these little minute things you start feeling and stuff.
That is where the mind plays such an important part, because you've got to quieten the mind and still the mind to be able to focus inward and don't listen to the waves and the birds and the traffic noises in the distance, or a kid shouting, or somebody in the river playing in the water. You've got to try and really be able to focus yourself inward and isolate yourself and focus really deeply on the whole presence and the sincerity of yoga. And that's when the best comes out.
Yeah, because it's great, because a lot of people say they can't meditate or they don't know how to meditate. Well, this yoga helps you get into a meditative state. And the more you practice, the more you get deeper into it. Where can people find you? Because your story is fantastic. Are you sharing anything that you want people to come follow you and have a conversation with you?
Well, we have a Facebook page, Great Break Yoga, which is on Facebook. I'm not sure exactly, it's just under Great Break Yoga. That's the group with the name. We've got our own logo. We've had our own T-shirts made.
Oh, awesome.
We all have T-shirts, and we've got a logo that's been designed for us. I'm not wearing it now. I should have. Sorry, I could have put my T-shirt on and shown you, but maybe next time. I never thought of it. Not good thinking, Barry. But we're a really close-knit group, and we have a social aspect to our yoga as well. It's not just yoga. We often have, after a yoga class, we'll all bring something light to eat and a snack and a drink, and we'll just have a little social get together after the class. And it just bonding times with people where they can chat and not even talk about yoga. We talk about everything else, probably except yoga. It's just a social get together as well. So in our village where I live, it's become quite a social aspect to yoga as well. So it's gained another sort of facet. It's taken on another part of the community's life, that it's not just pure yoga. Yes, we do, and we're very reverent about our yoga classes, but there is a social aspect to it as well. So everybody's become friends, and the yoga groups meet. Sometimes we'll meet at somebody's house just for a cup of tea, or somebody's birthday. If it was somebody's birthday, they might bring a cake or coffee or drinks along and have it after the class, just as a general sort of community interaction. And it's become a very, very nice part of our village's lifestyle.
That's beautiful. And it couldn't be such a more important time to have that. Well, Barry, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your amazing story and sharing what you're doing for your community down there and keeping the spirit of yoga alive. And it's amazing. And I just want to thank you again for coming on. And that's the end of the podcast. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thank you very much for your interest.